Happy Saturday. I have Alaska with me. So today we're going to talk about launch myth number 5. So we've been going live every single day since Tuesday, and this is the last launch myth, the last live that I am covering. And today we're going to be talking about the myth that you need to be happy and high vibe in order to sell. I feel like this is a pretty common one, especially if you are in both the spiritual and the entrepreneur community. There's this myth, there's this concept that you have to just be like high vibe in order for people to listen to you, in order for people to buy from you, and it's just so not true. And so I really want to debunk this myth because I don't want this to creep into our sales and our marketing and our energy and really force us to be this version of ourselves that isn't authentically who we are. And then also we do talk about magnetism, we do talk about bringing the energy, but that's different than being quote unquote happy, right? Like you don't need to be happy and high vibe 24/7 in order to be attracting clients. Trust me, a lot of the times that I've sold, I've been feeling a range of emotions. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm just going to put this in as the title and pin it so people know what we're talking about when they join. Yay. Okay, cool. All right, so let's just talk about where this comes from first, and then we'll go into debunking it. Okay, so there's this concept that in order to manifest, in order to create, in order to be in a level of leadership, that you have to be happy, that you have to be high vibe, that you have to be positive, right? You have to have all these positive thoughts. And while there is, I always think that myths have a little bit of truth in them because that's the experience of some people, but it doesn't need to be the experience of all people, right? It just because, just like we talked about earlier this week, you have to feel like a myth is like you have to burn out while you're launching, right? You have to feel like there's so many things to do, so much output. And even though that might be the experience of some people in the past or some people currently, it doesn't need to be your experience either, right? So just because there might be a little bit of truth to something based on what other people have said in the past does not mean. I had to give it a second to reconnect. So yeah, while there is some truth to this, while there is some factual, understanding that yes, this is what it might look like for some people, it does not have to be the reality every single time, right? We can also see that when something has been done so many times before, right? This is why I'm primarily speak to women and men, all people, right, who are cycle breakers in their lineage, right? We've seen something done over and over and over, and then we realize, wait, there can be a different way that we're doing this, right? Like as an eldest daughter, I'm a daughter of immigrants, right? There's a lot of things I'm doing very differently in my parenting, in the way I show up. I believe that selling and business gets to be the same way. Just because traditional business, which has primarily been ruled by white men, right? The things that we're creating in business and within a new generation is gonna look wildly different, right? And this wasn't even necessarily true in a traditional business concept either. This is more of like manifestation, spirituality, right? You have to be positive to manifest. You can't think negative thoughts, all those things. And I really think the piece of this that is missing is the piece of our humanity, right? And I think when you allow your humanity to lead and you trust your humanity and you love your humanity and you let it just be okay that you are human and that you have quote unquote negative thoughts. I don't even like using that word or negative emotions, right? I don't like using those terms because, positive, negative, they're so subjective, right? And you can also just say like, well, it might be just an uncomfortable emotion. But at the same time, like anyone who's seen Inside Out, right, or anyone who has connected deeply with their emotions understands that This is something that we get to experience and then process. Emotions are here just as messages to tell us how we're feeling, to tell us what's going on, right? And so they don't need to be labeled as negative. They don't need to be labeled as bad, right? So when you see that and you don't see it as good or bad, then you also allow yourself to show up in your business in a more expanded way. I honestly feel like a big part of leadership, especially as I've grown into being a leader and especially as I have served other leaders, I work with leaders, right, in my spaces, in my community. I feel like one of the biggest things that shows up is when we allow ourselves to feel the extent and the full extent of our emotions and our emotional capacity. That is actually when you up level as a leader, right? So this is where it becomes not about being happy all the time. Actually, leadership, as you start having more responsibility, there is more to be accounted for. There is more to handle and navigate on a daily basis. You're growing your team. There's more people listening to you. There's more people more people that you're responsible for their livelihood, right? So not only that, not just your team, but the clients that are looking up to you. So when you grow a team and you have a 7-figure business, right? In the morning, someone might be defaulting on their payment. By the afternoon, someone might say that they want to leave your membership. Later in the afternoon, you might sign a new client. By the end of the day, right, something might have happened with one of the team members or something that's going on with the project, right? And then before the night ends, right, you might have like 3 new signups or recurring revenue is coming through. You have to be able to hold all those emotions all within the same day, all within the same, sometimes within the same hour. And you have to be able to navigate and process and expand your capacity to be able to hold and receive all of that, right? And I think that's a really important aspect of leadership that is not talked about enough, is the level of emotional intelligence that you're gonna have. It honestly does not get easier. Are there some aspects that might get easier just because you're doing them more? Sure, right? Is it so much easier for me to go on live or create posts or show up as my truest self, talk authentically and vulnerability? Yeah, absolutely, right? There are some things that do get easier, but at the same time, most of the time, it is just you holding more. It is just you navigating more emotions, at the same time more people, which means more people leaving and more people coming, right? You're holding bigger amounts of money, but that also means if someone leaves or asks for a refund, that's also bigger amounts of money. So you have to be able to hold all of that and not just like, okay, someone, defaults on their payment. Oh my gosh, now the rest of the day, oh God, oh my gosh, what if they're not going to pay? Oh no, are they saying that they can't pay until this date? Oh my gosh, what do I do? Why are they doing this, right? You've got a team to run. You've got 3 coaching calls. You've got a group to show up for. There isn't space for you to completely be over consumed by the things because guess what? All of that has happened within the past couple weeks. I've signed new clients. Clients have defaulted. One client left my space. What else has happened? Stuff going on personal and family, right? Like there's just things constantly. there's just constant things that are happening, right? And you just have to, especially if you have something like a subscription membership, like there's going to be like this amount of people 1 month, and then by the end of the month someone might be like, hey, there might be 3 people, hey, I don't like this, I want to cancel, right? If it's like a month to month thing, which a lot of people are doing more month to month memberships now, and they might be like, yep, this isn't for me, right? And then at the same time you might get the DM message at the same time from someone else going, oh my gosh, I love this community, this is amazing, or I want to buy your membership, right? I've been feeling into it and it feels like a fuck yes for me. So how do you hold all of that at the same time, right? That is what you're leaning into. That's what you're allowing yourself to hold, so that it isn't just, oh, one thing is derailing, now my whole day is gone. Oh my gosh, someone left a mean comment, oh, I can't go on Instagram for 3 days, right? Like we have to be able to navigate that and hold that so that it isn't this codependent relationship with our clients or our community. So when I sign a new client, oh my gosh, I'm so happy, yay. But if it's been a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm not okay. You can't run a business like that, right? It's so dependent on, oh my gosh, this person likes me. Okay, yay, I'm happy. Oh my gosh, this person left, this really harsh feedback about my coaching. Oh, okay, now I'm so sad and I can't show up and I can't coach, right? There are people depending on you. Your team is waiting for you, right? There are all these things. You have a complete launch planned, right? You have to continue to show up. And especially during launch, you're having more conversations about your offer than ever, which means you're going to hear no, 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 back to back to back to back. Each launch, typically, I'm hearing no, 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 or people just either ghosting, not responding. Maybe we're chatting in the DMs. Sometimes I intuitively reach out to people, right? And it's a lot of like no's, it's a lot of ghosting, it's a lot of like non-responses, right? And that is just a part of it, right? People saying, oh no, this isn't for me, not at this time, right? It's just part of a launch. It's just part of putting yourself out there. Some people are going to be like, yeah, absolutely sign me up right now. And there are going to be some people who are like, no, this isn't for me. Or you just never hear back from them. You have no idea what they're thinking, right? Where when you start launching more, you start really like learning to close the loop with people and be like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. This just isn't the time for me, but I'm thinking about this and, maybe we'll jump into something later. Like, thank you for letting me know, right? You really learn to close the loop because then you realize that you're the person on the other end waiting to see if someone responds, right? But then that's also like I was talking about when it comes to codependence and emotional intelligence. You also have to not really give it a second thought, right? You have to not really give it, like, not make it mean anything about you, right? If someone doesn't respond, if someone says no, if someone says no at this time, right? You really have to learn to detach so that you're not like, your energy's not like waiting, right? But yeah, I do think that I do think that's also a mirror, like with my students who, I'll ask them like, oh yeah, or I'll ask for coaching, like people aren't responding to me or people are ghosting me or people are saying no to me or I'm not hearing back from people. And I'm like, are you doing that to coaches that you're reaching out to? Are you doing that to, programs that you're interested in? How quickly do you pull the trigger, right? Because the moment I got excited to pay my coaches and I just pull the trigger and I just pay and I pay in full as often as I can, I've seen people do that for me over and over and over and over, and people saying like, I love paying you. I'm so excited paying you, right? It makes me so, so, so excited. And so I think that's a piece of it as well. It's always a mirror, right? Everything's always a mirror. So another piece of this is just knowing that you can sell in any emotion and you can sell feeling all emotions, right? So happy and high vibe is, even though like that is on the higher end of the spectrum, right? It doesn't mean that you can't sell from other levels of emotion. So what I actually think is more important than being happy and high vibe is an emotion and an energy that I call conviction, or you can also call it groundedness, right? Where you are so convicted, you are so rooted, you are so in full belief of your offer and your work and your mission that you don't even need to be happy about it because you're so rooted about it, right? It's kind of like I relate this to my role as a mother, right? Am I happy all the time as a mom? Absolutely the fuck not. And there may even be some things that I don't feel like doing, right? Like sometimes I don't feel like driving all of the way to go, or maybe I'm like, oh, I'm just like sitting down and relaxing, but I have to get up and make food, right? And I have to cook. It's like, do I always feel like doing those things? Not all the time, right? But it's also like, especially as a single mom, it's like, well, if you don't do it, no one's going to do it, right? So you got to get up and do it. It's almost like when you're in launch, it's like, I don't feel like selling today. Maybe I'll just do something else instead, right? It's like, well, there has to be a level of devotion to your offer that is more than just, I feel like it. Oh, I feel like this. Well, I feel like maybe I'll do that today, right? Instead of being dependent on your emotions, while still listening to your emotions and letting them be the messages that they desire to be in your body and listening to your inner guidance, right? Because that is so deeply important. There's a level of conviction where it's like, I am so devoted and committed to this thing, to this commitment, to what I've created, to my art, to what I want to bring to my people, right? Just like motherhood, you might not always feel like it, but you're so devoted and you're so committed to taking care of your kid or your children that it's like, yeah, you might not feel like making dinner, you might not feel like picking them up from school, but it's not like it's not like you can't do those things, right? And I do think that motherhood has shaped a lot of my entrepreneurial journey because, yeah, I might not feel like making content one day or showing up and talking about something, but I don't rely on feeling happy and feeling excited to do so. Most of the time, I am actually very excited to show up, right? Because I'm very aligned to what I'm talking about. I can talk about it all day. I've literally gone live every single day for 5 days because this makes me so happy. I love having these conversations. Like, I'm constantly thinking about them, right? So I'm also not forcing myself to do anything that's not in alignment with me. But at the same time, sometimes, and based on our cycles, if we're bleeding, right? If you're in your luteal phase, right? There might be moments in your business, in your entrepreneurship journey where you're like, oh, I really don't feel 100% today, or I really don't feel right. So of course there is the moment where if it really is not aligned, if you're sick, if you're not doing well, if it's going to be more beneficial for you to rest, obviously listen to your body. But I feel like most of the time it's just, we can push ourselves a little bit and we can push ourselves to show up and we can push ourselves to really honor our commitments and honor our level of devotion, right? And allow ourselves to show up from that place, even if it's imperfect. And this is where we stop relying on feeling happy and excited and high vibe because we're so convicted, we're so grounded in our offer that is actually the thing that leads people into our world, right? It's not like, oh, this person is really excited, maybe that's why I'll buy from them. It's more so this person is very convicted in what they're saying. They're so confident in what they're saying and they believe it so deeply that I believe too, right? Because we can't just rely on excitement to sell. Excitement might bring in the people. It might create a lot of hype, right? And it's okay to create hype. That's fun. That's actually one of the launch phases that I teach. But in order to sustain it, it's like they come for the hype, but they stay for the conviction, right? So they stay because you're so convicted about your offer. You're like unwavering. I think of like a tall, strong tree or a building, right? That's just so sturdy, so strong. You've got roots, built into the ground. No matter what anyone says, even if nobody buys throughout the entire launch, right? Which has happened to me for sure, or maybe not until halfway through the launch. Can you still hold strong beliefs about your offer and about your work and about yourself, even if people aren't buying, right? And trusting that people are coming, right? Maybe there needs to be a little tweak in the messaging. Maybe there needs to be something with the launch strategy, right? I mean, work with your mentor on this. This is why mentorship is so deeply important, right? And this is something I do with my students literally all the time is we look at, okay, what's working, what's not working, why don't we try this? Well, okay, your energy is like this. I love reading people's energy, being able to give them a reading and an understanding on how to utilize it, right? I used to teach human design and I used to read charts and things like that. So I incorporate that a lot in my coaching. But even beyond human design, just knowing someone's energy and capacity and what they're moving through, I think is so helpful during coaching, where I love to give like options, right? So it's like, well, what about this? No, I don't want to do that. Okay, what about this? Okay, oh, what about this? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, that's the thing. Okay, and then we build it out from there, right? So it's very choose your own adventure. But that's why we don't need to be excited and happy, because those emotions are kind of going to come and go. Like, you might be excited and you might feel other things and you might feel all of them at the same time, but you can be convicted and grounded consistently, right? And especially if you're working on your beliefs, especially if you're working on your identity, especially if you're working working on your thoughts, your subconscious work, you're doing that inner healing work, right? Like you are going to build a level of conviction and groundedness that you're just naturally going to have about your offer, especially if it's like a signature offer that you're continuing to offer and launch over and over and over again. Like that's actually going to be something that supports you so much. And it allows you to, you know, as you're launching it over and over, you get to look at it from different angles. Okay, I positioned it this way. How did that work for me? Do I want to try it in a different way next time, right? Do I want to talk about it like this? Do I want to look at it from this angle? Like what are the ways that you want to look at your offer? And also your thoughts about your offer, right? Because your thoughts about your offer are also going to bleed into your marketing and your sales, right? If you're thinking, even if you have the thought that I can only sell when I'm happy, right? It'll really force you to show up in a way where you can only allow yourself to sell when you're feeling happy, which might be 50% of the time, right? Depending on what's happening in your life, maybe less, maybe more. So that's why it's not, you know, it's not reliable. You want to give yourself the ability to sell no matter what's happening in your life, right? No matter what's going on, you still know how to sell, because it's like a doctor, right? If a doctor gets sick, it's not like they forget all their medical, you know, knowledge. Like they still know how to help people, even if they're sick themselves, right? Or they're feeling unhappy, they still know how to be a great fucking doctor, right? Or someone who's a lawyer, let's just say, it's like, do they forget all of their knowledge of the law that they've studied for years and years in college, right? Just because they're feeling a little sad that day? No, of course not, right? They still know exactly what to do. They're still upholding the law, the research, the work that they've done. They still know how to show up in that way, right? And it's the same for you. You can still coach when you're not feeling 100, and you can still sell even when you're not feeling 100, right? It might not be like, oh my God, everyone, I'm so excited, yeah. Like sometimes I'm like that. Today, I'm not really like that. I'm chill, I'm grounded, but I can still sell. I can still tell you how to create a great fucking launch. I can still talk about all the phases of a launch. I can talk about how you don't need to be high vibe. I'm not feeling super happy and high vibe today. That's okay, right? It's fine. It's also the morning. I'm not a morning person. So there are ways that you can show up, and this is where you allow yourself to show up. This is where you allow yourself to not fall into the myths of professionalism, where you have to look a certain way and sound a certain way and fake this voice, right? Remember the customer service voice? You have to fake this voice, and you have to, pretend like you're so happy and so willing to help and the customer's always right. Like, no, when you're an entrepreneur, you don't need to do all that, right? And you can show up in the energy that you're in and allow that to lead you and allow that to be the thing that guides you, right? Which I think is so much more valuable actually than being happy, right? Because it allows you to be in this extremely grounded, convicted state that is sturdy, that is strong, that is rooted, right? And you speak from that place because of your knowledge, because of what you believe, right? Like think about like if you're unhappy, do your values go out the window, right? You still believe what you believe, right? In politics, in the world, in your core values. Just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean those values go out the window. It's the same thing with selling, right? Just because you're not feeling 100% doesn't mean that you forget how to sell or that you're not convicted about your offer, right? So you don't have to constantly be in that level of happy. You don't have to be in that level of high vibe in order for people to listen to you, in order for people to really see, like when people listen when you are speaking directly to them, when you are clear, when you're concise, when you know who you're speaking to, when you know exactly what it is that they're navigating and where they want to be, right? If you can speak to someone and be like, hey, I know exactly where you are and I know that you would rather be here, let me help you get there. And someone is speaking to me, let's just say I'm reading someone's marketing and it is so clear, it is so on point, it is so like on the nail, that I'm like, oh my God, does this person know me? Are they in my house? Are they watching me? Right? It is so clear. I can taste it. I can texture it. I can feel it, right? There's things that pop out to me that are like, that's me. That is actually me, right? And that you can do from a level of, I know what I'm talking about. That's conviction, right? I'm going to keep talking about this. That's devotion, right? I'm going to keep showing up in this way, right? And that is allowing you to continue to sell and have staying power versus someone who is like, I don't feel like it. I'm not going to sell. I'm not feeling good today. I'm not going to show up. Today's just not the day. I'm not going to be on Instagram, right? It's like, regardless of what energy and emotion you're in, you're showing up. And especially if you're someone who's like getting your business off the ground and you are, you're desiring to grow a six-figure business, multi-six-figure business. I mean, you should be selling every day. And that should be simple, right? Monday to Friday should be simple. Showing up every single day, talking about your offer. Maybe it takes 15 minutes. Maybe you go on live for 10 minutes. Maybe you make a post, right? Shouldn't take more than like 20 minutes. What takes the time is our overthinking, our spiraling, what are people going to think? Should I say it this way or that way? All the rules, right? All the rules of launching, the rules of selling. That's why so many of my students, when they enter my spaces, they're like, I feel so relieved that I didn't have to sell the way someone else taught me to sell. And I can do it like this. I could break all the rules. And I feel like most of what I do in my coaching is giving my students permission slips and for them to be like, I never knew I could do it this way. And then of course, as a byproduct, because sales are always a byproduct, their sales are skyrocketing. They have their first 10K month. They have their first 20K launch, right? Literally 20K launch from Magic Mind. One of my students had a 13K sales month after we tweaked her launch pricing and plan, which we kind of changed everything that she thought was like, because it was coming from a place of scarcity. Oh no, I don't feel like people are going to be able to pay for this. Made it super low, right? We actually jacked it up and then worked on her beliefs so hard that she sold it at like 3 times the price. Another 10K course launch that one of my students just had. She's a language teacher from Taiwan, right? There's just so, you think like, oh, well, people in my country or people in my community, people in my culture, they might not pay this way. They might not be interested. I don't know. I mean, are you going to spend your entire life arguing for your limitations, or are you going to see yourself as big as I see you? Right? I was coaching one of my students the other day in Magic Mind. I was like, I see you up here. I see you so big. Right? And she was like, I offered something for her as part of her launch strategy. And she was like, I don't even think that I could do that. I don't feel like I'm ready for that. And I just coached her up to seeing herself as in that bigness. And she was like, wow, it's so, she was essentially saying like, it's so, it's humbling and a little scary that you see me so big. And now I have to stretch myself to show up in that identity. And that's what a good coach does, right? They don't just play into your limitations. They see you up here bigger, that highest self version of you, and goes, this is what you can do right now. Go and do it. Right? And it allows you to show up in this way that maybe you've never shown up before. So, all right, that's what I want to leave you all with today. Quick little live on not needing to be high vibe or happy in order to sell. We covered why it's not important and the emotions that are and the energies that are actually more important than being happy and high vibe. We talked about where this even comes from, like the spiritual community, the manifestation community, and how that is not factual, right? We talked about being a cycle breaker, a generational cycle breaker in your lineage. And we also talked about, what it actually does take to sell and how we need to show up when we're selling, right? And also giving some metaphors like doctors and lawyers and, people who like even mothers, right? Like when you're showing up to do the work that you're meant to do, you're not always feeling happy. You're not always feeling high vibe. You're not always feeling positive, but you know how to do what needs to be done, because it's not like all that knowledge and education goes out the window the moment that you're having a lower day, right? Which again, our emotions and based on our cycles, they're going to come in waves. They're going to be cycles. You have to allow yourself to know that you can sell and show up from a grounded place to sell, even if you might be moving through multiple emotions and holding multiple emotions, which again is the pinnacle of leadership, is emotional intelligence, knowing how to navigate that payment defaulting in the morning and a client signing up in the afternoon, and not letting either of them be over consuming in your business. All right. Okay, so that is the end of the launch series. I have something coming very, very soon that is coming next week that I will be announcing. So keep your eyes peeled on my stories. I'm gonna be sharing more details. I am so excited and also grounded about this new offer that is coming through. And I can't wait for you all to just experience it and be inside of it and really go through this journey. Especially if you're someone who's launching for the first time, or if you launched a couple times, but it didn't go the way that you planned, or maybe you've launched a couple times and it did go as planned, but you want bigger results. You know that you can be hitting higher ceilings, and you know that you could be doing 2x, 3x, 4x of what you're creating right now currently in your revenue. If that's you, definitely stay tuned for this offer. I'm going to be announcing all the details next week. All right. Love you.